I 1000% recommend NCU. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Stephanie Yates, Anya Buile, Steph Anya for short. I'm a licensed associate marriage and family therapist. This channel is for my fellow therapists, those who are thinking about becoming therapists, and those who are simply looking to create their best lives. And today's video will be for those who are in the process of becoming therapists or curious about becoming therapists. I'll be sharing today about my experience being in an online marriage and family therapy program. I'll share a bit about how I got there and also my top pros and cons of that experience. If you're curious about how I ended up being in an online program and what I liked and didn't like about it, stay tuned. What's on your mind? Okay, so to really get you caught up to this story, I recommend you check out my video, I Quit My Corporate Job to Work for Free. There I share a little bit about when I was introduced to marriage and family therapy, why I wanted to pursue it, how long it took me to get there, and it's quite a story. But long story short, it took me about 2.5 years from graduating my undergrad program to actually starting my marriage and family therapy program. And during that time, I worked a corporate job. And so I'll talk a little bit about what I was originally looking for when I was finishing up undergrad and what led me into the program. I'll tell you this, I definitely was not looking for an online program. I'd been doing research for at least 2 years since my sophomore year in undergrad. Once I figured out that I wanted to be a marriage and family therapist, I was like, there certainly has to be more than like 1 or 2 schools available. But the fact of the matter is that there really is a very limited amount of programs for marriage and family therapy. That's one thing to know about it. It's kind of a niche and there aren't a ton of practitioners in comparison to the other mental health professions. Once I started that corporate job, my desire to be a marriage and family therapist hadn't changed. I just didn't know now that I had this additional full-time job, how was I going to make it happen? And so I originally was still looking at the school that I was planning to go to in undergrad, but I took a tour of it and honestly, I just couldn't imagine working an 8-hour day, leaving work, going to this hospital, paying for parking, and then being in class for 3 hours. And then how was I going to work clients in when it was time for me to do that part of my program? So at that point, I started considering online programs, and that again was not what I was thinking about at all. So now let me hop into the pros and cons of being in an online mental health program, specifically for me, marriage and family therapy. So here is a con that I still deal with until this day, and that is really that being in an online program is somewhat of a taboo. I recently went to my first marriage and family therapy conference. If you guys want a story time about that experience, let me know. It really kind of opened my eyes to the fact that people, they will kind of shun you when they know that you're in an online program. And you know, they'll say, oh, what school did you go to? You tell them, like, I've never heard of that. And you tell them, oh, we are a distance-based program. And sometimes they're just not open to the idea that you can get a solid education online. So the fact that getting online degrees is still relatively new is something that can kind of work against you when you're trying to sell yourself or when you're just trying to fit in and mingle with peers in your profession. For the people who find online programs to be a taboo when they stigmatize it and judge it, I don't blame them, because I was the same way. I was thinking, like, am I truly going to get a solid education in this online program? I was thinking the same thing, so I don't judge them. I just wish that the culture would change so that I and other people who could benefit from these online programs wouldn't be so reluctant to go ahead and enroll and just get started with our dreams and passions, but that's a whole nother conversation. The sun is back. Another major con that I experienced with NCU is the turnover with the academic advisors. So when I started out, I had an enrollment advisor. She basically answered any questions I had about enrolling, would basically help me see like what my options were for funding, give me like an idea of what it would take for me to complete the degree, told me the steps of the application process, kind of held me accountable, which I really loved because you normally don't get that with the school. They're not trying to make sure that you can apply. I went ahead and got enrolled. And then I got an academic advisor, and then I got another academic advisor, and then another academic advisor. I was only at NCU from the end of 2016 until the middle of 2019. I think I have 4 or 5 different academic advisors during that time. At one point, you would have an academic advisor and a financial advisor, and then they changed it to where your academic and financial advisor are the same person. The difficulty there is that some people were well-versed in the academic side and others were well-versed in the finance side. So depending on your new academic advisor, whichever department they came from, they were really well-versed in that section and not as well-versed in the other. So that was frustrating. Sometimes I would have an awesome academic advisor, and then out of nowhere, I was being transitioned to a new person. And I even remember like when I was at the very end of my program, like in the last 3 weeks of my last class, I had a new academic advisor. I'm talking about I had to get transcripts sent out. I needed to get everything handled for my graduation. I was trying to do an appeal so that I could graduate a little earlier. And I'm dealing with a whole new person. Now, that person was extremely competent, so no complaints there, but it's just the turnover. You'd like to think of an academic advisor as someone who is guiding you through your whole process in school. So all the turnover, and I hear that from other people too, that was definitely a major con. That's something that I would say really needs to be worked on and emphasized, is consistency and the support you get throughout your time at NCU. Another con is that being in an online mental health program, when it comes to practicum, internship, you have to find your own internship. And that is something that really made me nervous. What I love about NCU is that they were totally upfront about that from the very beginning. As a part of your application process, you have to do research on what your state regulations or requirements are. Even though NCU already knows them, they want to make sure that you know them. And so they made sure that you're aware you're going to have to find your own internship. And I was in a Facebook group for NCU students, and some people were talking about how it taken them over 6 months, some of them maybe a year, to find an internship. So obviously that's going to slow you down in the process of being able to graduate. So I was extremely nervous about that. In a brick and mortar setting, for those who don't know, brick and mortar means that it's the standard, what you would expect, a campus, building type of setting when it comes to a school. Typically there's a clinic on campus. And so people will come knowing that there are therapists in training there and they'll have reduced fees. So your clients are really coming to you just from being at that school. Whereas in an online setting, most of the time you have to find your own internship. So that was nerve-wracking for me because I'm like, I am coming from a totally different field and profession. I have no network. What do? I could do a separate video on how to network in your community when you are in an online program, especially. I kind of learned ways to do that. Let me know if that's something that you're interested in. But basically, I was nervous about securing an internship. I got very lucky that the first place I interviewed for, I was able to get it, and they actually had to wait for me to get to the point of my program where I could start my internship, but because I started so early just out of nervousness. But that can be a con, is having to find your own internship site, your own supervisor. All of those things can be major headaches in being in an online program. And then the last con is when you have an online program that's in a different state from you, especially, the requirements and regulations for your program could differ from the regulations requirements for your state. So for example, I mentioned in my 10 steps to become a licensed therapist video, NCU, or my school, has a requirement for relational hours and direct hours. And if you need more information on what that is, just watch that video. But my state doesn't have a requirement for relational hours. So it made it a lot harder for me to have to make sure that I had 2 or 3 people in the room, when for my state, that really wasn't even a requirement. So working with my internship to help them understand, like, I have to have half of my hours be with 2 or 3 people in the room for clients, having to literally say, I cannot accept any more individual clients because it's taking time away from hours I should have available so that I can see couples and families. That became a major headache. The discrepancy between my state regulations and the regulations in my program. Now let's move into the pros, because there are so many of them, but I'm only gonna name my top pros so that this video isn't too long, but I could honestly talk about them all day. I 1000% recommend NCU for someone who is looking to become a marriage and family therapist. And I'll tell you why. The first thing is that you'll see in my Quit My Corporate Job to Work for Free video, I was very adamant about not wanting to take the GRE. And this actually had nothing to do with like test anxiety. It was really just due to the fact that the GRE does not prepare me to be a better marriage and family therapist. It doesn't prepare me to be a better student. It was just an arbitrary exam to take. And most programs require it. And so I was so frustrated with that, because I'm like, it costs money to study for it. It costs money to take it. So one thing I loved about NCU is that they do not require the GRE. Not gonna lie, did make me a little skeptical at first. When I did my interview, my interviewer mentioned that. He was like, the GRE holds no bearing on how well you'll do in this program. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't require that. And they're really ahead of the game, because now we're seeing a lot more graduate programs that are doing away with the GRE. And NCU already was doing that even when I couldn't find another program that was. So that was a major pro of the enrollment process for NCU. The next pro, obviously, that flexible schedule. NCU has this wonderful model, and one of the things about it is that you always have assignments due every Sunday. So I could pick when I was going to be doing my extra reading, when I was going to be looking at any lectures or videos. I could schedule according to when I had availability. If I wanted to work all weekend, I could just work all weekend. If I wanted to go during the week, I could do these things on my time. And that was fantastic. Related, NCU has a one-to-one model, which I probably sound like an NCU nerd, and that's because I am. I love this school. The one-to-one model was perfect for me. And what it means is that it's just you and your instructor, okay? I didn't have to have a schedule based on a cohort. I didn't have to have a schedule based on fellow classmates. It's a one-to-one model. So that really goes hand in hand with that pro of flexibility, because I could start class any given Monday. They just matched me with whatever instructor also had availability to be my instructor. So when I had questions throughout the week on homework that I was doing, I could email that instructor, they would get back to me, and it was just such a nice experience. And you can actually still have that class feeling when you have discussion posts, because you're still responding to other people's ideas on the same materials that you're reading. With that one-to-one model, it is the best of both worlds, because during all of my core classes, it was just one-to-one. But by the time I moved into clinical internship and supervision, I had about 5 other students where we would meet 2 hours once a week with our instructor, and then we would give each other feedback on the work that we're doing with our clients. So it was the best of both worlds. I got to learn the fundamentals on my own at my own pace, and then I got to sit for 2 hours with fellow classmates who've been through the process with me, and that was an awesome experience as well. And so if I needed to take a month break after a class, I could totally do that, or move right into the next class that next Monday, because I actually loved what I was learning. I love the structure of the classes. I love the order that they recommend, the foundations and then fundamentals, and then moving into practicum and internship. I love the flow of the school, and that's just an added pro. I didn't even make that official pro, but I love that. NCU, the most recent reaccreditation for COAMETE Accreditation was a 5-year accreditation. I talk about in another video, my 10 steps to become a licensed therapist video, the importance of COAMETE accreditation if you want to be a marriage and family therapist. That basically is the golden standard that vouches your program has been vouched as a program that can prepare you for this profession and, to me, more importantly, help you pass your licensure exam. There are brick and mortar programs in Atlanta that are not COAMETE accredited. And some of them have actually recently lost, more than one has recently lost their accreditation altogether and have gotten rid of their MFT programs. So it is highly important to find a program that has been vouched as successful in launching future MFTs. So that lets you know that there is trust in this program. There is validity in this program. It works. It prepares people to be effective therapists, even from the comfort of their own home. And here's the big one. Okay, when I first recorded this video, this is my third time recording it. When I first recorded this video, I was kind of hesitant to put it out because at the time, I hadn't yet passed my exam. And I wanted to make sure that I passed my exam before I vouched for the program. When I went to the National MFT Conference last August in Texas, I was so happy that I happened upon the NCU luncheon that I didn't know anything about, but the dean of our program, he found me and he's like, hey, I know you went to NCU. We're having a luncheon. So I was so glad I ran into them. It's such a family. We all went through this experience remotely and then we're all together now. And I heard from multiple leaders at NCU, we have a 98% first time pass rate on licensure exams. You guys don't know how rare that is. I recently did a video on how I passed the marriage and family therapy exam the first time. It's a very hard exam. It requires both practical and theoretical knowledge, and it's very hard to pass and study for. But NCU, the last time I checked, not that long ago, has a 98% first time pass rate. And so that lets you know right there, this program works. And so that's the major pro, is that even though I was getting all of these added benefits, doing things on my time, not having classmates, all of my initial worries, the taboo, the stigmatization, my fears about it being diploma mill, they were all silenced when I passed that exam the first time using materials that were included in my tuition. I know some of you have money questions about tuition, about how much an MFT gets paid. I'll do a separate video on that. If you have specific questions about that, please type them down below so I include it in the video. But I just wanted to give you guys a snapshot of what it's like being in an online marriage and family therapy program. This could be useful for really any online mental health program. And so I highly recommend NCU. I can't really speak to other programs out there, but I had such a wonderful, wonderful experience. I have a lot of NCU pride, if you can't tell. I hope you guys found this video to be helpful. I could go on and on, but I'm trying to stop myself. If you found this video to be useful, please like it. Please subscribe to my channel. Let me know other videos that would be helpful for you. Again, my name is Stephanie Yates Anyabuile, Steph Anya for short. I appreciate you for watching until the end of the video. That actually really helps me, so thank you. What's on your mind?